Deborah, in 2001, I had been working for the Urban League in Dudley Square for about a year. And that was a transformative experience for me as a white guy working in a black organization. So that was happening inside me. Plus, I had had experiences in 2 or 3 kinds of community dialogues and seen the power of dialogue to bridge differences with people and overcome lack of understanding and build relationship. And also, the census report for the 2000 census had come out, and Boston was now being called a majority-minority city, meaning more than 51% people of color. And I got the idea that it would be very powerful and very important for Bostonians to bridge some of their differences across racial and ethnic lines and overcome the social segregation that we have. You know, we all go in our beaten paths. African Americans go in this path, white people, Irish people, Latino people, Haitian people, etc. We tend to stay in our own communities. And I started to look for partnering people, organizations who might want to work on a citywide dialogue program where we could invite people to get together in a multi-session dialogue experience and build understanding, break some of the negative stereotypes that we have of each other, and build new friendships across racial and ethnic lines. That was my goal.
I think dialogue and communication is very important, especially trying to solve the riddle, you may say, of racism. Because once you communicate, you understand people's positions, and I think even more importantly for people who classify themselves as white, in dialogue, you can also demythologize the preconceived notions that have been said about non-white people. So I think dialogue is good.
It was several years ago when I was interested in the citywide dialogues. I heard about it through the Harriet Tubman House. I think they had a poster or flyer up. And I just thought, wow, that sounds so great to be able to speak with area residents about racism, about the issues that were plaguing Boston at the time. So I called them and I put in an application. There's a whole process. And at the time, I wasn't living in Boston. So I filled out my application and told them that I lived in the suburbs and that I had been a resident of Boston for 14 years. And this is a conversation that I had been wanting to have. And so also the Cambridge YWCA years ago had a series about women speaking against racism. So that was really powerful as well. They spoke to me, asked me a few questions, and then I became involved in citywide dialogues. They gave me a date and time and checked my schedule, and I could make it. So that's how I got involved.
I don't know, I'm wary of using the word solution, but I do think that it's very much a mechanism to bring us together and to understand our commonality. And I think that that is the first step toward getting to a possible solution.
Sounds like white people have a lot of things they need to work through. You should start a course for looking at white people's issues. So Jennifer started it in 1999, and I took it in 2000, and then I became a teacher. And it's not actually all for whites. It's a public course, so anybody can take it. And there are people of color who take it as well. But right now, everybody who teaches it is white.
I think there are a lot of reasons why I ended up, joining and doing one of the dialogue groups. The issues of racism and prejudice have kind of always been important to me. Growing up in Boston, I grew up in Rosendale, and when I was growing up, there weren't a lot of people of color in Rosendale. I mean, we were the Greek family on the street. We were the minority. Even though color-wise we weren't different, I always felt different because we spoke a different language at home, we had a different religion, we went to different church. I didn't have a lot of community connection with like the Irish kids that I went to school with because they all went to a different school, they went to CCD, they went to Color Guard. I didn't do any of that. They went to ballet and gymnastics. I went to Greek school after school. So, I don't know, I think that made me think about, issues of justice for everyone. And when I went to high school, I went to Girls Latin, and that was really the first time I had any experience with kids outside of Rosendale. It was kids from all over the city, and my friends were everyone. They were the Chinese girls from Chinatown, the black kids from Dorchester, the Irish kids from all over, and Greek kids that lived outside of Rosendale that I wouldn't have known otherwise.
About the dialogue so much, and I was like, all right, if I go a couple of times, can I go fishing? 'Cause I'm a mad fisherman. She's like, yeah, if you don't like it, you can go fishing. So I was like, okay. And I ended up sitting down for the first section and really fell in love with it. And our group, I really love the people with our group, and we've been together for 6 years now. And every month when we meet, I really enjoy, seeing them, talking to them.
In Boston, when my husband's grandfather and friends would go downtown for a job, and there's signs on the door that say, no Irish or Italian need apply. Now that's definitely a form of discrimination.
Oh, yeah.
Now, and I think, well, most of you know that by looking at my face, I'm not white. would be an assumption that I am, but I'm Native American. So that my people got a lot of that stuff too, and what was done to the Indians, same idea. Because they're not as smart as you, they're not educated, because they're a different color, push them to the background.
There's some good in people. We just have to try to find it. So even though if they're it's like me going up to somebody who I knew was not a KKK, but they treated me as a black person as if they were the king wizard himself. And yet my job is that, how do I respond to that person? Do I respond to them in their capacity as KKK, or do I respond to them helping them get to the next level?
An interest in it. I don't think that I nor anybody else is going to solve racism, but the journey is a journey of healing, because those things which cannot be understood must be loved. That's really just very simple. That's not hard. Now that doesn't mean that it can live. I don't understand roaches. I don't. But you embrace them, and you do understand there's a purpose, but you can't have them in your house, so you have to stamp it out. But when you do that, you do it with regret. And I think that that's what people don't realize. Racism is a roach in the room. It has to be stamped out. But we are going to regret the fact that there's this mess and that we've killed something. And we've killed something that has obviously been significant to somebody. And I think as a black person, I look at racism as like, this is a terrible thing, because it is. If I were white, racism has been a great boon, because it let extremely marginal people rise. When you think about it, there's a whole lot of dumb white people that if they hadn't been white, they would have never gotten out of the gate. And so when we sit there and say things like, well, racism has to go, they have to say, but I have a really nice house that I wouldn't have had, because there's no merit here. And so we have to talk about these things.
During the campaign for mayor in '83, we went to different communities and we were knocking on doors. And in one place, a man confronts me on the steps. His wife and says, "You don't have a right to run. What are you doing here? You shouldn't be running for mayor of the city." And I looked at him and said, "I have every right to run. I'm a U.S. citizen, and I'm a registered voter." But his view was that as a black person, I did not have a right to run.
In the South, and my mother had gotten married, so I had a stepfather. My stepfather was from Guyana in South America. And we decided we wanted to go to the movies. And the place that was closest to us where we could go to the movies was Augusta, Georgia. And so we went to Augusta. That's 17 miles out of Aiken, South Carolina, which is where I spent the winters. And we got to the movie theater, and we were going to pay our money. And the woman looked at us and she said, "Where are you from?" And he said he was from Guyana. And she asked, "Where was I from?" And I said, "Well, I was born here." She says, "Well, he can sit downstairs, but you can't." And I was like, and I don't know if I should be proud of this or what, but I looked at his hand. I said, "But he's darker than I am." She said, "That doesn't matter." And that definitely stayed with me. It's, I don't think about it a lot, but when I got, when I was thinking about that question about examples of racism, that one certainly came to mind.
The Dialogues program was just phenomenal. We're a group of people here at the YWCA who have come from a variety of backgrounds. Some of us were not born in this country. We have different perspectives. We're different ages, different races, different ethnicities. We went through the Dialogues program as a staff team together before bringing it into the YWCA. And I was truly amazed at the difference that it made for us. Even though we are an anti-racism, racial justice organization, we didn't really talk about issues of race and ethnicity within the office very much. We learned a lot about each other. We understood each other better. And after going through this program, we talk about issues of race and racism as we talk about other topics, much more comfortably, much more openly. It's really changed the atmosphere of